having any health problems, just simply saying he's fine. We checked him out and we're happy. Why go after the media and something that's just sordid, really, quite frankly, disgusting, Molly? He made a much bigger deal out of something that could have been answered with a simple no. He's fine. He got banged up first week. He's a little bit better, and he had a good game. Instead, Steve Sarkisian turned a 1 minute story into a 4 day escapade.
Well, for me personally, I will say this. I'm a fan of Steve Sarkisian. Completely unnecessary and a childish response to a reporter's legitimate question. It's not something that happened behind closed doors that nobody saw. Arch Manning is throwing during the game, and you see him wincing. You notice it. That's your job as a reporter, to notice something and then come. He didn't speculate. He didn't just go out and write something without asking. What if he had just sat up there and said, Arch Manning seems to have a problem throwing the football, without ever asking the coach a damn question? Then the coach would have got upset and would have been like, you don't know what you're talking about. You didn't even ask me. Well, he came up to you and asked you, and that was your response. Seems to me like Sarkisian is feeling some pressure, and he needs to feel some pressure because the expectations at Texas are very, very high, as well they should be, because they have a hell of a team with supposedly a hell of a quarterback, and Sarkisian's reputation as an offensive mind on a collegiate level, coaching college football, is pretty damn impressive itself. So maybe, just maybe, the real issue is that Sarkisian is feeling some pressure his damn self and is having a difficult time dealing with it.
Can I play devil's advocate? Because I know you guys are both in unison, but what if he's just trying to deflect a little bit for his quarterback, who has garnered so much attention with the last name Manning, and then after the play of week 1?
It makes no sense, because what kind of pressure is it on any quarterback to be healthy? If you're healthy, you're healthy. If you're not,
But
you're not.
we're talking about Sark today.
I understand that.
We're not talking about Arch.
But I'm talking about Sarkisian in terms of Sarkisian's response. What do you mean taking pressure off the quarterback? If Arch Manning is hurt, that's not something that negatively impacts Arch Manning. So that was about Sarkisian more so than it was about Manning.
Paul, where are you on Arch
Molly,
Manning? Yeah.
Stephen A.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen A. is 100% right here, and the pressure ought to be on Steve Sarkisian. And, he's the one that got his lunch money stolen at the Cotton Bowl in the semifinals, and then was completely embarrassed up there in Columbus last week. And I understand why he's defensive, but don't turn it back on the press. And I know everybody loves to hate the reporters, but sometimes reporters do their jobs and don't try to make the story about them. And this reporter was simply doing his job. Molly, I think you were about to ask me about Arch Manning. And I have been leading the parade on Arch Manning. We all know that.
Yes.
I'm backing up a little bit.
Thank you.
I am not that impressed with when I visit your studio, Stephen A., I get a little smarter. And that happened last week. And the bottom line is Arch Manning is not playing like an elite quarterback. He's barely playing like a pedestrian quarterback. He had some good plays in that game, but that game doesn't mean anything, and he's not going to really get a chance for a couple of weeks. But ultimately, I think we all jumped the gun. Is he in the Heisman race? No. Arch Manning is not in the Heisman race as of today.
Mr. Paul Farnbaum, my brother, speak for yourself. I didn't jump the gun. There's a whole bunch of people that didn't jump the gun. You did, having him penciled into some Heisman finalists before he played the game this season. Now, that wasn't us. I'm certainly not taking credit. And listen, I had myself, Desmond Howard on this show as well. We were talking about we need to see him perform. You going up against Ohio State, we know how he performed during that game. We're waiting to see, because Texas ranked #1 coming into the season, Molly, and it really blew me away. How are you the #1 team in the nation and you walking into game 1 as the underdog?
Yeah.
That made no sense to me, regardless of what Vegas says. It made no sense to me. And then Arch Manning went out and showed they didn't deserve to be #1, and he didn't deserve to be considered a Heisman finalist, period.
Well, first of all, coming up with a Heisman finalist in early September is ludicrous, but we do it, so therefore we are. But ultimately, Stephen A., as I said to you on Labor Day, I'll say it again a week and 2 days later, I still think Arch Manning can have a big-time season. When he starts seeing the road games in the SEC and some of the games like Georgia and others, I think he has a chance. But he better get moving. And what he doesn't need is his coach babying him in the media. That's the worst thing you can happen when you already have the name that a lot of people want to hate on, privilege that a lot of people want to, scorn. Arch Manning has to go out there and do it himself, and he doesn't need to be coddled by the one person whose job it is to make him look good and to protect him on the field, not off the field, and that's Steve Sarkisian.
Fair enough. I have a question specifically for you, Paul Finebaum. The SEC is the first conference with 11 or more teams in the AP poll in a single week, but have only 3 teams in the top 10, being outpaced by the Big Ten, who has Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and Illinois in the top 10. Paul, after back-to-back seasons with the Big Ten team winning the national championship, is the SEC's dominance officially over?
No, Molly, it is not. Because I remember the biggest game in the country last week in Norman, Oklahoma, and watching Michigan be embarrassed. Michigan, that mighty Big Blue who won the title 2 years ago, even though they probably really don't deserve it. The bottom line, Stephen A., just calm down for a second. I know you've never been one to jump the gun on anything, but I'm seeing a lot of good in the SEC, and you can call me anything you want, and people can say you work at the SEC. I'm giving you an opinion here. Texas has been shaky, but Oklahoma is a contender now. Tennessee has looked good. So has LSU beating Clemson, and the Big Ten, UCLA. They lost. They're 0-2 with Nico, the big quarterback. Oregon looked good. I grant that. Ohio State's looked good. By the way, Penn State's one of those top 3 teams, Molly and Stephen A. Who are what a couple of high school teams they've beaten? They've beaten Nevada, Florida International. They've got Villanova this week. I mean, when are they going to play a legitimate schedule? How would they have faced or fared with playing at Clemson or Ohio State or some of the other teams? So I'm not jumping off the bandwagon. I happen to think the SEC is very deep.
Stephen A., this sounds a little personal for Paul.
Listen, it is personal for Paul, but I understand why, because too many people attack my brother to the point where he confusing me with them. I love my man Paul Finebaum. I know he knows his stuff. All right, and you do make a good point about Penn State because they got to beat some top-notch teams, no doubt about that. This is what we all know. We all know the deal with Coach Franklin and what he has to prove. And Ohio State is a reigning defending national champions, though. But I'm looking at it from this standpoint. You know how I feel. You know I'm all about Alabama, at least when Nick Saban was there, and times have changed. And with Kalen DeBoer coaching Alabama, when people think about slippage in the SEC, they automatically go to him. Okay, that's really the big problem right now. Georgia, of course, with Kirby Smart, we're going to look at them and we're going to believe in them and we're going to believe they're going to make some noise, of course. Okay, and you got to look at some of these squads in there. And I'm just of the mindset, if Alabama ain't relevant, then LSU needs to be, Georgia needs to be, maybe a Texas A&M needs to be. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's been a while since the SEC has won a national championship, Paul, so I'm not acting like they've fallen off the map. But the manner in which we once talked about them, Paul, because they just stood above the crowd and there was no peer, I don't think we could say that anymore.
I don't know
about the SEC.
Paul's jumping out of the frame right now. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, hey, Stephen A., listen, I get your concerns about Alabama, but there are 16 schools in the SEC. And by the way, the team at the very bottom, and I know you don't want to hear this, Mississippi State, they beat Arizona State, which was in the playoffs last year. So It is a very deeply Vanderbilt won on the road and beat Virginia Tech from the ACC.
That's
so
true.
top to
That's
bottom,
true.
Nobody can compare. But Alabama, no, I'm not excited about the fact that Alabama won 177-0 against Louisiana Monroe. They'll play Wisconsin this week and they'll go to Georgia in a couple weeks. But my point is, because the league hasn't won it in 2 or 3 years, they've been so dominant. I mean, who in the world
they have a peer now,
He's
Paul.
saying you're overreacting.
They're not standing alone the way they once did. That's all I'm saying.
You're a prisoner of the moment and you're overreacting.
When's the last time
That's
the
what
SEC won a
he's
national
saying to you. He's saying you overreact.
How many years ago since Georgia won a national
I've
championship?
had enough of you two being disgruntled. You don't know what it's like to be a UConn football fan. You saw what happened against Syracuse, and now my Giants, and that's where we're going next. Bye, Paul. Is it a giant mistake for Russell